Hi, my name is Zoe Daly, and I am the founder of Eru, where we make Irish woolen blankets that are reclaiming ancient practices of wool working with the land, reclaiming an industry that was very much dying and being degraded in Ireland. So I named the company Eru after the patron goddess of Ireland, and I work with her energy and a lot of the Celtic goddesses who are also teaching me to reclaim some of the ancient practices of when they were in Ireland. These were sovereignty goddesses, as I've described already, and what I wanted to speak about was their the sacred marriage rituals that they displayed. So these sovereignty goddesses, as I was describing before, were responsible for different areas of the land, and they would be responsible for maintaining, I believe, these balances of hierogamic union, of sacred marriage, balances within themselves, within their community, and this fed and rippled into the energy body of the land. To keep it in a good way. So they used to do these sacred marriage rituals, which were ceremonies to coronate the kings, the high kings of Ireland, of the different regions of Ireland. And there was a central region called Tara, where they would also coronate the king. There was said to be the king of Ireland. So basically, their job was to select the rightful king. From my understanding, the rightful king was the king that embodied this rightful balance of divine feminine and masculine energies within himself, so that he would be of perfect service for his role of guardianship of the land, guardianship of the community. So they would have a ceremonial ritual to select this king. The sovereignty goddesses were respected and trusted by the kings, by the community, to discern these rightful men. So they would have rituals on sacred sites, across on many of the sacred sites in Ireland, kind of the center of each region of these were called royal sites, and they were, I believe, on important energetic points. So I believe that these beautiful positive ceremonies which celebrated the sacred marriage were actually, which they shared with the community, were encoding and sending codes to the earth's energy field, to serve the earth, serve the community, serve the consciousness of the land, of the planet. I believe these sacred sites were also important on important ley lines and portals and stargates, which they were also guarding and protecting and caretaking. These areas where also they would bring in these souls for the divine birthing practices, which I described before, that I believe the sovereignty goddesses were doing. So they would have rituals on these sites. The rituals involved mead as a drink made from honey. I feel like this drink was, it was a ceremonial drink. It's described now as like intoxicating. Actually, Queen Maeve is one of the most famous sovereignty goddesses in Ireland, and much has been distorted about her, I believe. Her name could have derived from mead, Maeve, but she was also known as the intoxicating one. I find some of the descriptions of it in history or in our mythology are not, I don't believe they're true to the beautiful ceremonial aspect that they were. I feel they've been degraded, of like being these women becoming intoxicated and then, having sex with them, with the kings, and it just seems to be such dragged down to such a lower form of what I believe it was, which was a display of the sacred marriage, whether this was really enacted or it was just symbolic way of coronating the king, and I believe also bringing in possibly these these birthing rituals at the same time. um so they would, I believe, have these, use mead in a ceremonial way with these beautiful chalices, um and I believe they share this with the community, and I believe that the mead, almost like cacao, would open their consciousness to commune with the land, and discern, with correct seeing and discernment, that the sovereignty goddesses would also be able to identify the rightful king, who would have to, display or prove that he was the rightful king, which I believe was the one who embodied this sacred marriage within himself. There's lots of stories of, different practices during these rituals, such as the king having to drive his chariot between two stones, which I also believe, I know in Tara, where these two were a masculine and a feminine stone, as many of the stones in stone circles are, the pairs are, that he would have to drive his chariot through this without hitting a wheel. That's what it's described as, which I think is also a description of him embodying this balance within himself. There was also stories of like a white horse being involved, which I believe is to do with the divine birthing aspect. It's interesting because you can find many descriptions of these sacred marriage rituals, which are, I feel, completely distorted, very negative, gruesome, which I believe is what happened afterwards. But I believe at the time that the Tuatha De Danann were in Ireland, that they were seeding consciousness, they were a divine race, they were seeding divine lineages and protecting and being guardians for the land and for bringing in these royal lines of Christed consciousness. And they were protecting these lines, I believe. So I believe that these rituals, which involved, selecting the kings, involving the community, really were celebratory, positive rituals, celebrating this sacred marriage union of this hierogamic union of rightful balance, which within themselves, within their example to the community, and which fed into the land. So they were, seeding these codes into these sacred sites where they performed the rituals on, into the the ley lines there and the portals, which I believe were all working together to raise the consciousness of the area they were working in. So I think that the king's role, that I feel like the sovereignty goddess's role was to, was she was the spokeswoman, the guardian, the connection to the land. I feel through their womb practices, I feel that they were tuned into the womb of the earth, and they were in conversation with her. They were all also associated with different parts of the land. So this close communion was trusted by, the kings, and they bestowed then the sovereignty on the kings through these rituals of marriage and sacred marriage, and then the king would become the guardian, the protector of the land, would provide a safe harbor for these sovereignty goddess birthing practices, I believe, that they were doing. And I think that I think that afterwards, there were the invasions that came afterwards, and I feel what they were defending when they had to deal with these invasions were these areas, these sacred sites, these concepts, this sacred marriage union, this rightful balance of energies within the earth's energy field and within themselves, which was really embodying this balance within the DNA of humanity. I feel that they were, when the invasions took place, this is what they were protecting, and also what got disrupted and distorted after they left. So again, why this is um, relevant is because I feel that this is important to remember at this time, to remember how we can re-embody these energies for ourselves, and also for the good of our community and our planet. There was an interesting thing in Ireland called the Stone of Destiny, which was under the guardianship of the sovereignty goddesses, and this was used apparently in these sacred marriage rituals, where the king would stand on this, or was coronated on this stone, which I believe is a round stone, and it would emanate a sound of when the rightful king, stood on it, which was, probably just like confirmation of the energetic balance within him. So that stone is supposedly in Tara, which I believe has been, which isn't, I believe now there is a stone there called the Stone of Destiny, which I believe is not the same one that they used. I believe that one was taken when all these disruptions took place. And when these disruptions took place, they caused this wound. This wound went into the land to change the energy in these sacred sites, which has been documented by energy workers, dowsers, who can tell that the energy has been changed there. So again, I believe that this was part of the disruption of the sacred marriage, which was what I believe that the Tuatha De Danann upheld while they were here. And I believe that they were performing these ceremonial, beautiful rituals of sacred marriage to ensure the kind of rightful guardianship of the land, of the planet, of the grid systems while they were there. Okay, thank you for listening. I hope that was interesting.